Hello everyone. Today, my groupmates and I were going to tackle and report the formative assessment, chapter 9. But before that, I am going to read first the learning objectives. At the end of the chapter, the student should be able to first cite appropriate techniques and tools for formative assessment. Number 2, use appropriate techniques and tools for formative assessment. Number 3, explain how scoring rubric can facilitate formative assessment. And the last one is reason why out self-assessment is an important feature of formative assessment. What is formative assessment? So formative assessment is an important aspect of the educational process that provides students with feedback on their learning progress and helps teachers adjust their teaching strategies or techniques to better meet the needs of their students. Also, this takes place during the instruction or during the formative process to provide the teacher with information regarding how well the learning objectives of a given learning activities or activity are being met. So, in formative assessment, teachers monitor students' learning to get ongoing feedback to improve their teaching and for students to improve their learning. Students are helped to identify their strengths and weaknesses in formative assessment and the target areas that need to work. There are several types or different types of tools that can be used in formative assessment. We have the response cards, hand signals, games, classroom observation, quizzes and tests, peer and self-assessment, exit tickets, group work and discussions, and journals and reflection papers. Let us first tackle the response cards. So the response cards, these are pre-printed or write-on cards. Pre-printed cards have responses on them such as yes or no. Write-on cards allow students to indicate their responses in real time. The second one is hand signals. So the examples of hand signals are thumbs up. So for example, the meaning of thumbs up is I understand and can explain it. The thumb sideways means I'm not completely used about it or I don't understand. Then the thumbs down means I don't really understand. Next one is games. So games, game-based learning and gamified instructions are to engage teaching learning practice to drive learning. So there are games in formative assessment. The games can be used in formative assessment. So game-based learning makes use of a game of any kind to realize a learning outcome. So the games are related to the learning outcome. The fourth one is the classroom observation. This involves observing students during class activities and taking notes on their level of engagement, understanding, and participation. So in classroom observation, you are observing your students in the classroom settings. You are observing their capacity of learning or their understanding of the learning tools or learning outcomes. The next one is the quizzes and tests. So regularly administering quizzes and tests can provide students with immediate feedback on their understanding of the material or understanding of the learning outcomes and help identify areas where they need additional support. So in quizzes and tests, this is used to identify where the strengths and weaknesses of the students in the learning outcome. The next one is the peer and self-assessment. So this allows students to assess their own work and the work of their classmates can foster a sense of responsibility and encourage self-reflection and self-improvement. So peer, when we say peer, you are assessing your seatmates, your classmates' test or your classmates' work. And in self-assessment, you are assessing yourself or you are assessing your own work.
Good day, everyone. By the way, I am Jane Castro. So today I'm going to continue the report of my co-reporters that are the most appropriate techniques and tools in formative assessment. So self and pair assessment, allowing students to assess their own work and the work of their classmates can foster a sense of responsibility and encourage self-reflection and self-improvement. So when we say self-assessment, so it means that the process of having the learners critically reflect upon their own learning. When we say per assessment, it means that the process of having the learners critically reflect upon the learnings of their peers. So self and pair assessment, so it is about revision and improvement because it enables students to independently assess their own and other students' progress with confidence rather than always relying on the teacher's judgment. For example, when students self and pair assess, so they are actively involved in the learning process and their independence and motivation is improved. So next is exit ticket. So these are short assessments given at the end of class, gauge students' understanding of the material. So exit tickets, it is a formative assessment tool offering an effective way to end a class. So exit tickets, it is a brief rating assessment given at the end of class that asks students to reflect on what they learned. So in exit ticket, teacher may use exit tickets to assess students' understanding of the topic that they are teaching in class. So these are the tools that can be used weekly or daily according to the student's need. Exit tickets also may focus on one particular concept or skills that students are expected to study that day. So a good exit tickets may contain 3 to 5 questions on a piece of paper that students should be able to answer in just a few minutes before a unit ends. So next is group work and classroom discussion. So engaging students in group work and class discussions allow teachers to assess their understanding of the materials and the ability to communicate their ideas and opinions. So group work, it means that the learning experiences in which students work together on the same task. So group work can help build a positive and engaging learning community through pair learning and teaching. Promoting pair interaction can positively affect the learning experiences by preparing students for work or beyond the classroom. So when we say classroom discussion, dito natin makikita or it is a practice in which the instructor and students share views on a specific topic. Also, classroom discussion can not only help students learn from one another, but also it helps students to understand and retain the lecture better. So the last are the journals and reflection paper. Encouraging students to reflect on their learning through writing can provide valuable insight into their understanding of the materials and their thought processes. So when we say journal, it provides space for examining your readings and thoughts in great detail. So following through your own observation in whichever strike you as appropriate. So in journals, when you use as part of course, journals help teachers respond to your ideas. So reflection paper, it is an opportunity to sort through learning and experiences. Also, it involves the students' feelings, response, and analysis of an experience using a more personal approach. So it means reflection paper, it requires you to express your own opinion on a topic. So in the paper, you will analyze and reflect upon how a book or experiences or academic lecture shape your thoughts and opinions on a subject.
Good morning everyone, I am Phoebe Gates Kapalit and today I am going to report about the rubrics for the formative assessment. So, rubrics are documents that articulate the expectation for an assignment or a set of assignments by listing the assessment criteria and by describing levels of quality in relation to each of these criteria according to Reddy and Andrade 2010. So the use of rubrics as a classroom assessment instrument has also increased in higher education, and they are widely used at the school level. So scoring rubrics are a useful tool that can facilitate formative assessment by providing clear criteria and expectation for student performance. A scoring rubric is a structured grid that outlines the characteristics and levels of quality expected in a student's work. It typically includes a list of performance criteria, and each criterion is evaluated and assigned a score based on the level of mastery demonstrated by the student. So, using a scoring rubric during formative assessment has several benefits. First is clarity and consistency. So, clarity and consistency, scoring rubrics provide clear and consistent criteria for evaluating student work, which reduces subjectivity and helps ensure that students are evaluated fairly and accurately. Clarify expectations and components of an assignment for both students and course teaching assistants or TES. So using rubrics help us focus on what it is we want to assess or evaluate. This clarity is essential because it helps us identify those parts of the assignment or performance that matter. For example, it has taken several attempts for me to craft a rubric to help me gain insight into how students process through their personal and professional ethics to arrive at a decision and course of action. So rubrics require us to consider the components, aspect, and characteristics of what we seek to assess. It helps us envision what performance outcome we are looking for, and this then help us when that outcome is fully met by the student or partially met or not met at all. Next is the communication. Rubrics clearly communicate the learning goals and expectations to students, which helps them understand what they need to do to improve and support their self-assessment efforts. So, rubrics are used to remove complexity and subjectivity by describing clear and specific expectations for quality in the performance. During the formative phases of learning, both skills and rubrics provide a basis for self-evaluation, peer review, and reflection. It is essentially a rubric is a tool for communication between instructor and student. Rubrics promote good practice in communication. A rubric creates a common framework and clear expectation, consistency, and fairness. Same criteria and standards across students and review graders. So that would be all, and Miss Lorian will continue the report.
Now, let's move on to feedback. So, scoring rubrics provide a detailed and specific feedback to students on their strengths and weaknesses, which help them to identify areas for improvement and better focus their learning efforts. So feedback is important in scoring rubrics because it allows students to understand how they're performing and what areas they need to improve upon. Without feedback, students may not know what they are doing well and what they need to work on. So ang feedback is isa na siya nga important thing sa scoring rubrics. Kaya kung wala tayo feedback or walay feedback ang isa ka teacher sa students, is dili nila mabalaan kung unsa pa ang ilahang kailangan i-improve sa ilahang activity nga gibuhat. So importante jud ang feedback kay para makabalo ang isa ka student kung unsa pa iyahang kailangan i-improve pagka sunod if magbuhat na pud sila og activity. So additionally, feedback can help students feel more engaged in the learning process and can motivate them to continue to improve. So by providing specific feedback, Teachers can also help students understand how to apply the rubric to future assignments and assessments. So overall, feedback is an essential component of scoring rubrics as it helps students to better understand their performance and how to improve. So the next one is self-reflection. So self-reflection is a rubric students to reflect on their own performance and think critically about how they can improve. So ang self-reflection is an important aspect of learning and growth. In the context of scoring rubrics, self-reflection allows students to evaluate their own work and identify areas where they can improve. So diri nga part, ang estudyante mismo ang mag-evaluate sa ilahang mga work nga gibuhat, like sa mga activity nga gipabuhat sa ilaha. Ang example ana is kung sa imuhang strength and weaknesses. Dara imuhang i-evaluate kung asa ka maayo nga mga butang and kanang mga butang nga wala ka nag-excel. This process also helps students take ownership of their learning and become more self-aware of their strengths and weaknesses. So by including self-reflection in scoring rubrics, teachers can also gain insight into how students perceive their own work and the learning process. This information can be used to tailor instruction and provide targeted feedback to help students' improvement. So overall, self-reflection is an important tool for both students and teachers in the assessment process. It promotes a growth mindset and helps students develop the skills and knowledge needed to succeed in their academic and professional pursuits. So the third one is collaboration. So rubrics can be used to support group work, allowing students to collaborate and provide feedback to one another. So collaboration is important in scoring rubrics because it helps to ensure that the evaluation process is fair, consistent, and accurate. When multiple individuals are involved in a scoring rubric, like a likelihood of bias or subjective judgments is reduced. So collaboration is allows to a diversity of perspective to be considered, which can lead to a more comprehensive and well-rounded evaluation. So diri ang part is ang example ani is ang group work. Ang mag-assess ani or ang mag-evaluate ani is ang group leader. And then kailangan ang group leader is dili siya bias and kailangan ang iyang ang pag-grade niya or ang pag-evaluate niya sa matag members is fair lang siya and dapat accurate. Dili siya bias. Additionally, collaboration can help to identify areas where the rubric may need to be revised or improved, leading to a more effective evaluation tool in the future. So overall, collaboration is an essential for developing and implementing scoring rubrics that are reliable, valid, and useful for evaluating students' learning outcomes. So, in conclusion, scoring rubrics are a useful tool that can support formative assessment by providing clear criteria, encouraging self-reflection and collaboration, and providing students with meaningful feedback to support their learning.
So the reason why our self-assessment is an important feature of formative assessment. Self-assessment is an important feature of formative assessment because it allows the students to reflect their own learning and progress, take responsibility for their own learning, and become more actively engaged in the learning process. So here are the reason why self-assessment is important for formative assessment. So first, self-assessment promote metacognition. Self-assessment requires students to reflect their own learning process and performance. So which encourage metacognition or the awareness and understanding of one's own thinking and learning strategies. That's the according to Pandero and Alonso Tapia in 2013. So according to them, when the students engage in self-assessment, they become more aware of their strengths and weaknesses and also can develop strategies to improve their learning. Second, self-assessment increases students' engagement. So by allowing students to take ownership of the learning, self-assessment can increase student engagement and motivation. That's the according to Bound and Falcokiv in 1989. So according to them, when students are actively involved in assessing their own work, they are more likely to be involved in the learning process and take responsibility for their own learning. Third, self-assessment provide immediate feedback. When students engage in self-assessment, they receive immediate feedback on their performance, which can help them identify areas of weaknesses and develop strategies for improvement. That's according to Black and William in 1998. So according to them, this feedback is particularly valuable in the formative process because it allows the students to make adjustments to their learning strategies and improve their performance. According to Brookhart in 2013, self-assessment is a critical component of formative assessment because it enables the students to take ownership of their learning and become more actively engaged in the process. Self-assessment can help students to identify their own strength and weakness, set goals for improvement, and monitor their progress over time. So, in their study of self-assessment in higher education, according to Falcokiv and Goldfinch in 2000, found that the students who engage in self-assessment were more likely to take a deep approach to learning. So, as opposed to a surface approach, self-assessment allows these students to reflect their own learning process and develop a deeper understanding of the material. So another author that Sadler said in 1989, self-assessment is an important component of formative assessment because it enables the students to develop a better understanding of the criteria for success. So through assessment, students can become more familiar with the standards and expectations for a given task or assignment, so which can help them to improve their performance over time. So the importance of self-assessment in formative assessment has been widely recognized in educational research. According to Black and William in 1998, formative assessment can be defined as the process of seeking and interpreting evidence for use by learners and their teachers to decide where the learners are in their learning. So where they need to go and how the best to get there.